What about for you? Like eight, I guess 8 weeks ago. Like, what has that process been like these past 8 weeks?
Um, you know, it doesn't seem, it doesn't hold the weight that it held in training anymore for some reason. And I think that's because now that I know that it's possible, like a little of that magic has disappeared from it. I think, and I'm only talking about for me personally for a 31 hour 100, right? Like 28 hour 100 now holds that magic, or, like a 150-mile race holds that magic. But I think like the build up, I think this is the first thing I've ever done where the build up and the actual process was more important than the finish. And that was kind of cool because that's what I was hoping going into it. It's still cool, but it doesn't seem impossible anymore. And I'm already thinking about, the next thing that I can chase that feels like that physically or in another aspect of life.
Hmm.
But still absolutely stoked that I did it and we'll get to have that for my whole life.
Yeah.
But
Does it ever not feel real?
it doesn't feel real. It really doesn't feel real. If you told me that I ran 100 like 8 weeks ago, I'd be like, no way, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But
Do
it,
you
it
ever?
it it has been fun reflecting on the whole process and just the time that I put into a singular goal,
Hmm.
and everyone that I got to share like the training process with, and like the actual like 2.5 days, 3 days, have being able to have that experience with like my family and my friends. I think that's more important and more special to me than actually like doing the 100. I'm still just overwhelmed that they took time out of their lives, spent money to just come support me on a very singular, specific, goal that they didn't have to do that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. Does it ever go in waves of like sometimes it doesn't feel real, and then other times you're like, well, I ran 100 miles. Like I could definitely do this.
oh yeah, I think that's probably like one of the biggest takeaways my for me personally was just anything your day-to-day life, you know just chores you have to get done, or something that you want to accomplish. I think i think you get to that point where you're like, oh, I don't really want to do this, or I'm kind of tired right now, I'll push that off for tomorrow, or I'll push that off until tomorrow. And then I do consciously think, I'm like, no, I mean, like, I was way more messed up, way more tired, and I pushed myself for like 20 more hours. Like, I think I can get this done right now. Like, I think I can work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So
I
it
noticed.
has been kind of cool to fall back on that aspect of it.
Yeah, I notice. For me, it's like I'll ask like, why does this feel harder than running 100 miles
Oh,
on
that's
stuff?
cool.
Like
That's
like I just moved, so like packing up my apartment, it was just like getting annoying, like cleaning
mhm.
up stuff, or like I'm like, why do I have so much like Tupperware or something? Like, why didn't I get rid of this sooner? Like random stuff like, and then I was like, why does this feel harder than running 100 miles? And you're like, it's not. Like, dude, chill out.
I know,
Like,
chill out, just put your head down, keep grinding. I I
yeah,
I, I do resonate with that a lot.
were there any other takeaways from like reflecting that you were like, I'm putting this into my life right now?
Um, I think now, because it was such a big goal for myself, I think I will carry it forward. And now, like, when someone else doesn't really have belief in themselves, or like future kids or family, loved ones, if they don't really believe they can do something now, I feel like when I encourage them or motivate them, I feel like I have more like grounding kind of, or I'll believe it more when I encourage them. It won't just be like almost like superficial encouragement, but I'll be like, no,
Mhm.
you can do this. Like I now believe in people achieving very hard things, whereas before I didn't really believe that. So now I'm like, yeah, rock on. You guys can kill this. Let me know what you need, from me, and I'll be there every step of the way to like root you on.
Hmm. I
So,
love that how you said you felt like you learned more from the training process and
mhm.
like the process of leading up to it versus yeah, it is funny like you don't learn anything from the finish. Like the
Oh,
400
right.
meters on the track, it's like there's no learning in that. You're just like, "Oh, I finished. Like it's over." It's all the learnings from the training process. Hmm.
But I mean, I've heard people say that before, but I don't think I ever really believed it, right? Like the, like the journey is the destination, like that type of quote, right? But
Yeah.
I do feel like, I mean, during the race, I was like, no, I didn't put a year and a half of training into something just for like this to be in vain,
Mhm.
And I think I also saw the value of long-term disciplined goals that is the complete opposite of instant gratification. Like that was like the first like really like personal long-term goal I had, where it was over the scope of, even like 2 or 3 months. Like it was like a year and a half of like grinding and thinking about this and dedicating like time towards it. And I think I found the value of that. I think more people should go for something long term, where it's
Mhm.
not like super instant.
Hmm. Yeah, what happened a year and a half ago that you were like, I'm committing to this?
A year and a half ago, there were actually like pretty specific things that led me to want to try to run a 100. And I think I had developed some pretty bad habits in my life. I was like vaping, smoking, dipping, and what started casual and like kind of fun now became like an actual addiction. And I was like, yeah, I'm addicted to nicotine, right? Which
Yeah.
is isn't the end of the world unless you like are thinking 1, 5, 10 years in the future. And you're like, well, I didn't intend, like, when my habit started, I didn't intend for it to be a lifelong goal. And it was funny. I think I honestly did not enjoy running at all, but I found
Hmm.
that it was like the one thing that would kick my cravings and like level out my mood and like kind of like
No way.
relax me in the like quitting process, because I had tried to quit like, I don't know, like probably a dozen times, and kind of always fell back onto those old habits. and and yeah, I just found like running was like the one thing that kind of like kicked those cravings. And I remember just like running and training for a marathon at first, and opening up to my good friend about like the struggle of like quitting, like nicotine and tobacco. And he said like, well, what are you going to do after you run the marathon, you know? And I
Hmm.
was like, oh geez, like I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to like train for something farther. So
Yeah.
I ran the marathon, and then I was like, well, I have to keep this going if I want to like break the habit of smoking. So then I ran a 50, and and I remember like talking to him, and I was like, dude, I think I'm gonna have to keep running. Like I have to keep running for like myself. So that's when it was like during COVID, I watched like a documentary on Courtney Dauwalter,
Hmm.
and everything was kind of like a perfect alignment. Like I really wanted to quit smoking. I watched a documentary on her, and I was like, wow, that seems impossible. Like that is absolutely crazy. And I just like loved the idea of that. I've always wanted I always kind of like pushing myself physically, but I definitely wanted to, like go for something that like I never like imagined I could do.
Yeah, do something ridiculous.
Do something like ridiculous. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they were all kind of like coinciding along with like the thing like, there's no time like the present, right? Like don't put off like accomplishments, or don't put off like going for something. If you want that in your like on your personal resume, if you want that for the rest of your life, like you have to kind of do it now.
Yeah.
And I always thought like, yeah, like I want my future kids to believe anything is impossible. And how am I going to be able to pass that along if I don't like really really believe it in myself?